Great. Okay. Hi, Dr. Michelle Stafford here with World of Smiles and our podcast, Mixed Dentition. And today, my guest is Carrie Crimin. And you've actually been on our podcast before. Thanks for coming in again.
Thank you for having me back.
And
it's so fun.
Yay. And your company is Little Owl Medicine.
Yes.
And today, we specifically wanted to talk a little bit about herbal supplements and the like, to talk about just promoting great health. So,
yes.
I love it. So thanks for coming on again.
Thank you.
So I'm sure you get a lot of questions every day about herbal medicine specifically, and maybe just starting with kind of defining what it is.
So Chinese herbal medicine goes back thousands of years.
Right.
So because that's all they had when this medicine was developed, they had herbs.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of trial and error,
Yeah.
and great masters put together great formulas. So there's a lot of information that we can, as an acupuncturist and herbal medicine practitioner, you can look back on and draw from. So the formulas are they're highly nuanced, but the best formulas are fairly simple in nature, and then you can add and subtract herbs depending on what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it fascinating, especially since, herbal medicine's been around a lot longer than what
Yes.
we think of as Western medications
Mm-hmm.
and pharmaceuticals. And a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs are actually based on specific herbs.
Yes, it's fascinating.
Changed and then marketed and
Right.
the price driven.
Right, exactly. Way up.
Yeah. Definitely. So explain more how our herbal medicine, I think some people have, concerns about how they're regulated or where the formulas come from, how to find a good company that makes them.
Right. There's a lot of concern about that. I get questions all the time especially from parents, which is I appreciate, and I want my parents understanding that there are differences and asking these questions, because first of all, they want to be well informed, and second of all, they trust me to provide this herbal medication or herbal formulas for their most precious cargo.
Right.
And so it's important to me that they can ask those questions and that they get straightforward answers. So the biggest question I get, or the most common, I guess, is how do you know that they are regulated? And how do you know what are in the herbs and what's coming through from China?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't this dark, scary place that everyone kind of thinks of when they're like, oh, herbs coming from China. It's not quite like that.
Right.
They are regulated there, or there's companies there that gather the herbs, test the herbs. Many of them are U.S. facilities that are there, and they do testing. There's third-party testing that's done, and then they come to the United States. They are checked by the FDA when they come through. They have to be checked when they come through customs. And so they are checked, and then again, the companies, the reputable companies, have facilities here that they will then test batch. Each and every batch that comes through, they'll test the single herbs, they'll test the granule formulas, they'll test the tinctures to make sure, first of all, that they don't have any contaminants in them. And secondly, they'll be checking them to make sure that the herbs that they say are actually in those formulas are in those formulas. So they'll test for each herb in a pediatric tincture. So sometimes the tinctures are made, and they're made with a glycerin base and that granule formula that they make into a tincture. And so they're able to check and see if each herb that is said that's in that formula is actually in that tincture.
Oh, that's really great.
So
it sounds like they're highly regulated.
They are regulated.
Yeah.
And the other part is the companies that are high quality.
Right.
Some people get concerned, like, well, this formula, this granule, or this capsule, or didn't look like what I got last time, which is okay, actually, because herbs that are grown and then they're using the entire plant, the color is going to be different. So it's okay if they do have some color gradation in them.
Right. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into some specific formulas and herbal medicine.
Yes. Okay.
What would you say the most common herbal formula is that you use for your patient families?
Well, it depends on the time of year.
Oh, okay.
Generally.
Okay. So now we're hitting like flu season, I can imagine.
Yes, we're in cold virus flu season.
Yes, we are.
So everyone already has colds.
Mm-hmm.
They have congestion, coughs, headaches. So there are several formulas that they treat different. Well, there's many formulas based on what is presenting. So do you have a barky cough? Do you have a wet cough? Do you have a dry reactive cough? There's a different formula for each one of those coughs, also dependent on what kind of person you are constitutionally. So right now I'm doing a lot of, okay, are you on day 1 of being sick or are you on day 3? Yeah. And then from there, I use a base formula for each of those and then go from there.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm doing a lot of tinctures for little ones. And then there's also a tea that I like that's a combo of 2 formulas for kind of chest congestion and also like middle, like digestive kind of stuckness congestion. I don't know how to say it in Western terms. And that one is, it helps just kick out that last part of the cough and stiff, sniffly nose, headache, those kind of things.
Well, it sounds like I'm going to need to come see you with my little one.
Yes, come on in.
He missed a couple days of school earlier this week, and then I found out half of the kindergarten class was out sick.
Oh my gosh, half?
And I was like, well, that makes sense why my kid was also sick.
Yes, that does. And they're so sad and they're so miserable.
They're so sad and miserable, I know.
I know. But it's nice to have things in your arsenal at home to be able to just say, oh, here you go. Let's do this.
Let's do this. So, yeah, and see how it helps. And another thing that's really interesting about herbal formulas is we were talking about, it's not like you give it to me and it's exactly what you need and then it's perfect and there you go, you're done, one and done.
Right.
Here's your magic
not
formula.
Like that. It is not like that.
It doesn't
at all.
work like that.
No, it doesn't. And you want it to, but I think that just like when you go to the doctor for either like high blood pressure or high cholesterol, or even if you have diabetes and you take insulin, it's not like, well, here's your dose and I'll see you in a year. It doesn't. A lot of times those medications need to be adjusted and they need to be switched if they're not the right thing. I know a lot of people who can't tolerate certain kind of statins or a certain blood pressure medication affects them in a different way than another one. So, and then the insulin, adjusting insulin is like a dance. And so it is challenging. So I feel like when you're adjusting an herbal formula, it is kind of like a dance where you're taking so many things into consideration and you're looking at the child or the adult and what kind of constitution they have. So like, what's the underlying thing that's going on with them? Or even not even going on with them, just what are they like? And then what formula fits that pattern? And then what herbs will also work to support any big issue that's going on? So sometimes there's a lot of adjusting to make sure like, oh, well, we need a little bit more of this herb in this formula, or we need to change the base formula and add in different herbs, or we're going to scrap the whole thing and we're going to clear something else out first before this other formula can help. So for example, if somebody is really, so if I have a little one who's just really kind of struggling to, like, they're just really susceptible to getting every cold and flu that comes along. There's something to that. So I have to take that into account when I'm figuring out the formula. But on top of that, they have this cold that they can't get rid of. So which do you start with first? You don't want to, so a lot of the herbs will kind of nourish, but you don't want to nourish the cough. So you have to get rid of the cough before you can deal with the foundation. So there's a lot of thought that goes into trying to figure that out and what's going to work best.
kind of I like that you called it a dance, kind of that trial and error, is that dance of figuring it out. And yeah, that's great, kind of figuring out. And what I appreciate about herbal medicine is what you said just a minute ago about looking at like the person's constitution.
Yes.
And that's really fascinating to me.
It's nice to be able to do that instead of just being like, well, we're going to just try this medication.
Right.
Without taking into account what that person is like, or what they, on a foundational level, they struggle with just in general. And it's not even like a conscious struggle that people have. I think it's just more like, this is how I am.
Right.
This is who I am.
Right.
So.
Well, that's great information. So what other kind of struggles, if you will, parents have at certain times a year, or
well, the flu flu's
yeah.
coming up, and I think some people already have it. I heard in Colorado, I think it was, they shut down an entire system for the week. Yeah, I think it was
school system. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yikes.
I know. I don't know too much about it, but I heard through the grapevine that a school system got shut down, not in Oregon.
Oh dear.
So there's some things for the flu. There's definitely some formulas that are nice to have at home, just on hand. Then we'll have, once we get kind of through that, then we're looking at allergy season.
Right. And springtime brings the allergies.
And the big thing with allergy season is you have to start the season before that. I mean, you don't have to, but it is the most beneficial to start the season before treating for the allergies coming up. So if you have like March, April, May allergies, then we should be looking at things in January.
Got it.
To kind of say, okay, let's start here, to make sure that it's almost like climbing a hill. So we want to start like back here, get as much momentum we can to make sure that we can get to the top of that hill when springtime allergies really would be hitting.
Nice. That's so interesting to start so early to kind of prepare your body. To take it on.
Yes. And then there's the food thing that can help. Like there's the seasonal, like really truly eating with the seasons helps to support that.
Oh, that's really interesting. Let's talk more about that. So,
okay.
Like for instance, I love the idea, trying to eat what's in season.
Yes.
And what's available. Because to tell you, you see strawberries at the supermarket currently in November, and you're like, strawberries, you don't belong here.
No, they don't belong there. It's so tempting and it's so hard, but they don't. Or like cantaloupe.
Right? No.
This
is not cantaloupe season.
Tomatoes, and the thing is, they don't really taste good.
No.
But I think that some of us, like, we're so far removed from what the food actually should taste like, because either you just don't even know what that experience is. So,
so what are some of the fresh vegetables currently, now that it's like November, December, in the close to winter months?
So a lot of those things are the root vegetables. The greens are still coming, but it's more the hardy greens like kale, things that are kind of like, they become sweeter as if you have like cold spells, they will be actually sweeter after a cold snap.
Butternut squash,
acorn squash, the delicata, potatoes, carrots, daikon radishes. What else? It is nice. There's several CSAs, which are the community supported agriculture shares that you can get. They do have a year round. They have a winter option, so you can also get things that they're growing throughout the season.
Because I would agree, I feel kind of far removed, because you go to the supermarket and everything's still shiny and pretty in there.
It is, and it's really, I mean, it's hard. You're buying cucumbers in January.
Right, and you're like, is this cucumber?
Yes.
What's this going to be like?
And I mean, you have to be realistic. Like, it's not, and I don't know, if I couldn't send my kids to school with apples or cucumbers, I don't have storage for everything at home, and I think most people don't either. So you have to be realistic, but kind of keeping that in the back of your mind, like, how am I eating seasonally, and how can I choose this?
I love that idea. I made some butternut squash soup the other day, and I was like,
Now's the time for soups and stews.
Feels very warming. So.
I know. We just started. I'm making soup every Sunday.
Oh,
we're going to do soup Sundays.
I do that too. I make soup on Sundays as well. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
It's so easy.
I was like, oh, I love this. Dinner is ready, and I did it in the morning.
I don't know about you too. I make a huge pot of soup or stew, and then it carries me through for the first part of the week too. So bring it for lunch every day.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, me too. So Carrie, before I let you go, can you, so now, I mean, we've kind of talking about the cold and flu season. Right. Can you make just a couple simple recommendations for our listening audience to kind of help support those little sick kids or their immune systems?
Yes. So one thing to remember is kind of the ones that you hear about the most. Don't forget your elderberry syrup.
Yes.
It is very helpful to both help fight the cold and make sure that it lasts longer. It does not last longer. So that the cold lasts a shorter amount of time, and that you don't get another one right on top of it. Vitamin D is really good for this time of year. Warming foods are really nice. In the morning, my kids love it if I make them some tea or even just hot water with a little bit of honey mixed into it, especially if they have a sore throat. Or a cough. And sometimes I'll add a little bit of ginger, a little bit of lemon.
And do you get like fresh ginger and like
I do use fresh ginger. Yes, and that's an herb that's used a lot in Chinese medicine. Is fresh ginger. Mint is also really nice.
And what does ginger do exactly, or a few benefits?
Right, ginger is great because it's really warming. Sometimes, and that's why I like just a little bit of ginger, because sometimes it can be too hot. So if you think about ginger and how it tastes in your mouth, it can be hot.
It can be.
So you just want a little bit, especially for the little ones, you just want a tiny little bit. And it just helps to warm them up and open everything. And then the mint is really lifting and opening. So you also don't want too much of it, because you don't want someone kind of really feeling really heady with it. So, and it's very cooling. So there's two different, like the ginger's warming, the mint is cooling. So it just depends on what you feel like your child needs at that time. The formula that I am loving the most right now, the one thing that I do say, so I have a parent that will call and say, my one child is sick, my next one is on day one. What should I do? Right. So there's a great formula that's made. It's a tincture or a liquid, I guess, and it's called Clear and Release. I love that one for day one and a half. And then after that, I always recommend, it's called Xiao Chai Hu Tang.
Well, for those listening, we will have you spell it, and we will reference it.
Sounds good.
Is this a tea? I'm not even.
It's actually, that's okay. It is both. You can get it in capsules. You can get it in. It's safe for little ones, so it comes in a tincture, and then it also comes in a tea. The tea is great. And they all work really well.
And say the name again.
Xiao Chai Hu Tang.
Xiao Chai Hu Tang.
Yes.
All right. Yes. I like that name.
The other thing is that you have options with the herbal, like the tinctures and the liquids. Some of them are a glycerin base, and some of them are a mix of a glycerin and alcohol base. So a lot of times that's really important for parents to know.
Right.
And so we talk about that. That's something I always mention when I'm talking to parents about what formula we're using and what to do and how to use it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And warming foods, like we were talking about, just making that pot of soup and as warming up and using
keep
lots of
warm and dry and
fresh vegetables. And it's so easy to do. I feel like I should post some recipes as we're talking about that.
Yes. Oh, good idea.
Make it up as I go. I cook mostly vegan, so I could put like optional, throw some meat in there if you want.
It is, and the other thing I love to add that adds just like that, especially if I'm not making a meat-based soup or there's no meat in it, I'm like, what is that flavor? Either the mushroom powders or this would make it not vegan, but some fish sauce always adds
adds a little bit more flavor.
Something else.
Oh, I found some vegan like fake fish sauce too. It's like a substitute. I don't know what it's called, but I was pleased.
That one.
Yeah, that's fun. Maybe for those listening out there, I'll try and post some recipes as well that works for my kids. So if you want more information, we can find Carrie at Little Owl Medicine. And what is your website?
My website is www.littleowlmedicine.com.
Perfect. Easy to find. Well, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great talking about herbal medicine.
It's been so fun. I love
formulas.
herbs.
I love it.
There's so many options.
So many options.
Yeah.
Well, for more information, find Carrie. And for all of those of you listening and watching out there, thank you for being part of our audience. And remember, fill the world with smiles.